Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Mr. Rogan?
Here.
Mr. Evans?
Here.
Mr. Gahn?
Here.
Mr. Wexler?
Here. Dispense with reading of the minutes.
Third order, 3A minutes of the regular meetings of the members of the Scranton Housing Authority held March 6 and April 3rd, 2017.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3B, check received May 9, 2017 from Comcast in the amount of $269,436.72 for quarterly franchise fee payment.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3C, minutes of the regular meeting of the Lackawanna County Land Bank held April 13, 2017.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed. Do any council members have announcements at this time?
Yes, I have one. The Armed Services Day Parade to support our veterans is going to be held in downtown Scranton, May 20th at 11 a.m. to support the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard veterans. It begins at Vine Street and Penn Avenue, continues to the courthouse, and all are welcome. Colt's bus is going to be running free all day, and we just urge everyone to get out and support our veterans on that day. Thank you.
I have another. Riverfest 2017 is postponed 1 week because of predicted dreary weather and high river levels. The annual festival hosted by Lackawanna River Conservation Association was to be held Saturday, but is rescheduled to Saturday, May 20th, said Bernie Begirl, Association Director. The association postponed the festival because of an all-day rain forecast for Lackawanna County, as well as the danger of that a high river poses for paddlers. That's all I have.
The ribbon-cutting ceremony for the opening of the Rockwell Avenue Bridge in North Scranton is scheduled for tomorrow, Friday, May 12th at 9 a.m. All are welcome to attend. On Tuesday, May 16th, City Hall will be closed for Election Day. The DPW will be working. Garbage and red recycling containers will be on regular schedule next week. The pave cut inspector, John Hazuri, reports that the restoration work currently being done on Cedar Avenue will be completed tomorrow. Then they will move to East Locust Street to restore the full block. Within the next few weeks, PennDOT will pave all of Cedar Avenue from Lackawanna Avenue to Manuka. And I also would like to thank Mr. Azuri for assisting in getting a repair done on Dale Avenue through UGI.
Fourth order, citizens' participation.
Faye Frannis.
Frannie Scranton. I'd like to start off by saying that I understand you, Mr. Wexler, and you, Mr. Rogan, had nothing to do with the ads by the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors. But that doesn't absolve you of responsibility, in my opinion. Now, to start with, the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors is trying to influence the election in our city government on May 16th. How are they doing this? They're doing this by sending out multiple ads for Mr. Wexler, Mr. Rogan, and other candidates with falsehoods in them, statements that are not true, and the people have no way of knowing this. I have to wonder what their incentive is to help Mr. Wexler and Mr. Rogan and anybody else. I know Mr. Rogan and Mr. Evans are realtors, and this realty transfer tax might have helped them a little bit. And I don't think that you, Mr. Rogan, and you, Mr. Evans, should have voted for that because it's a conflict of interest because it's helping your businesses. Now, the first ad, Mr. Rogan, from the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors states, Mr. Rogan says, Pat voted against the hike in your trash fees. But that's not why. Because Mr. Rogan in in December of 2013, he alone, no other councilman ever, and not the councils before, the councils since, he voted, Mr. Rogan did, to raise the garbage fee from $176 to $300.
That's not correct.
Where is it wrong?
I voted against the increase.
No, I beg to differ, Mr. Rogan. You were the one that pushed it through. Mrs. Evans and Mr. Joyce voted against it.
That's not accurate. The garbage fee was increased, I believe, 1 or 2 years prior to the year you're speaking about. And I did vote against the increase.
I don't believe it. I just don't believe that. In the last 3 years, you voted for the garbage fee in the budget. Now, another thing, as far as taxes, Mr. Rogan, you and you alone, nobody else in this council, has raised taxes 86%. 86%. You alone did this. Something not to be too proud of, considering you're the only person on city council that's raised taxes as much as you have. Now, Mr. Wexler, in the ad that they put out for you, with your name and your pictures all over it on both sides, saying that you were working to help, to look out for your prescription drug claims in Scranton, ensuring you're not overpaying for the medication you need. Now, that implies that you're helping everybody in the city of Scranton, and you know that's not true. You could only do that for the employees in Scranton. So this is very...
I did address that I don't agree with that statement either. I did address it with the...
Pardon me?
I did address it with the realtors.
You did address it.
When that flyer came out, I called the realtors and I expressed my displeasure with that,
Well-
yes. But I have nothing, as you said, we have nothing to do with what's in there.
I know that. So, now another thing. And this is how I feel, and I'm going to read this because this is very true. If Mr. Wexler and Mr. Rogan, if you had any integrity, honesty, or conscience, you would demand that the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors take out an ad in the Scranton Times printing corrections before Election Day, May 16th, on Tuesday. You have that responsibility to us, the people. And if you fail to do so, or you fail to correct those lies, you do not deserve to be sitting at council. You do not deserve to be reelected, and shame on you if you don't do this. Now, don't you agree that you should demand a retraction from the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors before next week? I mean, because all these people that are getting these ads with deliberate lies in them are not going to know the truth, because these realtor associations are spreading lies like crazy, and it's not right. So on May 16th, I hope the people realize what the both of you were like and don't vote for you ever. Now, I'd like Mr. Wexler to ask Mr. Menor for me if there's any law that he knows of that gives Jason Shrive, the sewer authority manager, the right to retract those things on those invoices from the lawyers. He's the lawyer for the city. Would you please ask that question?
I'll ask him, but I mean, Mr. Shrive is the director. I believe he has the authority to do whatever he
He's a
wants.
lawyer. He should know the answer to that. Well?
Are you asking me what Attorney Shrive's position is?
No,
No.
what authority allows him to
If-
submit the letters with redactions in them?
Is there a law that
Attorney-client
states?
privilege. Attorney-client privilege.
Attorney-client privilege.
We're the clients, the people.
Sewer
So-
authority is the client.
The sewer authority is not the client. We, the people, are.
You know.
Thank you. Joan Hodawanitz. Mr. Case, you're not on the sign-in list, so you'll have to wait. There'll be a period for you to speak after Mr. Morgan. Okay.
Joan Hodawanit, city resident and taxpayer. 50 more days to June 30th, the deadline for the city's audit. And speaking of audits, the sewer authority published in the paper in the legal section request for proposals for its audit. And the bids will be opened here in City Hall on May 19th, Friday at 10 a.m. That same day at 4 p.m. in the governor's room will be the next sewer authority meeting. And I hope a lot of people attend, because I would like to hear what the authority will say about whether or not they are going to ask the AG to perform an audit. And if they don't want to do that, I would like to know why. I hopefully will get an answer and they won't dodge the question. 5 days to the primary election. I hope everybody turns out to vote. Anyone who is not pleased with the candidates running can always write in a name. But the best thing that could ever happen to us is if we get as close to 100% electorate turnout, and that will certainly send a message to everybody who is either running or would like to run. And that includes people running for the school board. Even though school board is a separate entity, it's one city. And that election is going to affect us greatly, because remember, they're slowly swirling down the drain. On one hand, city's trying to get out of distress status. On the other hand, the school district is about to pull us underneath the waves. So everybody go out and vote. 180 days to the general election, and hopefully by then we will have the Arcata study telling us where we stand on stormwater management. And it's been 6 weeks since you approved the Knowles insurance list. Has that been scrubbed and ready for release to the public?
I think we're about a week away, because I think you told me last week we'd be ready in 2 weeks, so.
Okay, I will make a note of it. Next Wednesday, May 17th, is the next pension board meetings. And speaking of the pensions, on May 19th, here in council chambers at 10 a.m., same time that they're opening the bids for the RFP for the sewer authority's audit, they will be opening up the bids for the RFP for the third-party administrator. And if anybody can explain to me during fifth motion how they advertise for a nationally recognized third-party administrator, I would be grateful. Again, the city's website, the RFP page is incomplete. There is only one page on the rental registration, and the RFP for the third-party administrator was never posted to the website. And on the controller's webpage, we have only the report for March. All of the reports were deleted. Don't know why. During fifth motion, I hope you will discuss the Naog treehouse disaster. I suspect that no one has an idea yet how much repairs will cost if the situation is repairable. But if it comes forward to the council as a resolution for funding, I hope you demand a full accounting of what the cost entails.
Yeah, I talked to Mr. Fallon from Parks and Rec today to see if he had any new information about any expectations of quotes or when work would be started and completed. And at that time, he didn't have anything.
Yeah,
so
I think
do a
it's
follow-up.
premature to get a cost estimate, but should it come as a funding issue, let's just not rubber stamp it through. Let's get some questions answered before you approve it. And during motions, if you can explain whether or not we've gotten any reassessment data from the county and if it's of any use to us. And item 5B, the National Resource Network, we're in phase 2 of the downtown revitalization implementation and school budgeting. The MOU that was on the website does not fully explain the role that the school district is playing in downtown revitalization. I don't understand how the school district got sucked into this to begin with, although I appreciate that they're going to have to kick up $10,000. But if somebody could explain, I understand, you know, the city's interest in downtown revitalization, but what's going on with the school district for this particular project, you know? And the other thing they got downtown right now is the school administration building. Thank you.
Ann Robinson?
Ann Robinson, Scranton homeowner and taxpayer. Mr. President, City Council members, good evening. Just as a refresher, I did address you on March 2nd, 2017, concerning the vacant lot next to my property and the residents of this property, mainly the snakes. May I present some pictures to City Council?
Thank you.
I had the lot cleared, so please refer to the before and after pictures. The pictures do speak for themselves. It's almost like a breath of fresh air. The low grass And the cool, wet temperatures that we have been having have been a deterrent for the snakes. But the grass is already getting high, and the snakes will appear, and my budget cannot afford for me to do this in a timely manner. If this lot is a situation of taxpayer ownership, then the owner is responsible. If this lot is on the city's list of abandoned properties, then it is the city's responsibility. Unfortunately, no one wants to look at this concern. The block where I live has a few more lots in this similar situation, so I can only imagine how many snakes we have. And just a reminder, there are parents walking their children to Willard School, and their students going to West Middle and West High. When the house on this property was demolished, we did have an exterminator. He did identify the snakes. They were rattlers. We also had raccoons and possums and woodchucks. And just as a side note, we still have the raccoons. I had one on my deck last May, Sunday after Mass. My next project then is going to be to identify this type of snake that we do have here. I do have a kennel in my yard for my animals, and one of my animals is vision impaired. So I need to know which type of snake I'm looking at in case of a snake bite. I will certainly keep you up to date on it, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ann, would you like your pictures back, or do you want us to keep them?
You certainly may keep them. I do have others of the snakes. I will save them for next time.
Okay, thank you. David Wilson?
Hello, gentlemen. David Wilson, Scranton. I'm going to tell you about a problem I've been helping with the city for the past 5 years and nobody knows about because nobody can see it. I adopted the Leggett's Creek area kind of out of a way to get out of the house. I moved back 5.5 years ago from Alaska to help my parents. I was only taking a year off, and that was 5.5 years ago, and the reason I came back to help was we learned my mom had Alzheimer's. So I'm a caregiver in the home, and I had to get creative how to get out of the house and do things, and I started scrapping, you know, metals, and I'd kind of walk around and looking at different places, and there's a lot of accidents in the notch. So I was seeing lots of metal parts down over the bank. As I looked into the creek bed, that used to be a sewer a complex down there, probably 50, 80 years ago. And what they did was when they made the new sewers, they just cut off the old pipes and they let them lay in the creek bed. And the creek was bleeding orange. So I started cracking them up and moving them out of there. I've been working on that project for over 5 years. 2 months ago when I found out we had the Great Pennsylvania Cleanup started, I got all excited and I called to register. And the lady said that she would not allow me to register for that area because it was too dangerous. And I said, well, I've already been there for 5 years. I know that area better than anybody. But nobody else could see it until this year. So what happened is, somewhere along the way last year, all the trees and brush were cut on the side of the hill, and it's caving in. You're losing the dirt and the bank right off the side of the highway coming down into Scranton from Clark Summit. It's just caving in. Some of the pipes actually fell down, some of the old pipes, and one day I went down and saw they used to connect those pipes with lead rings. One of those lead rings was just laying on a rock in the creek bed. So you had all the iron in the creek, you had the lead there. Then I've also found toxic stuff that the railroad has thrown over the bank, and I have pictures. I have pictures of everything I've done down there. I got a picture of a container that has the railroad marked on it, and I picked it up and it had a tarp in it. And I pulled the tarp out, and inside the tarp was a rag with some chemicals in it that made me sick for about 3 days. Had no idea what it was, but the railroad company's name is right on the bucket. And then there's a whole bunch of other pails that are all similar, and I had them all lined up and took pictures of them. So I wanted you folks to know that, you know, they need to be better stewards of. It's an area that nobody can see. And the reason why there's so much garbage, I took over 60 bags of garbage out of there in the past month and a half. I took an old sewer pipe out of there that was right off the pull-off by the Market Street, before the Market Street exit, where you can tell years ago some sewer company used to back up in there, hook it up, and just release their tanks down into the creek bed. I pulled that out and cut it off, and then some other good Samaritans and people that helped me picked up all that garbage. But I'm going to continue doing that. I'm just trying to help solve a problem and let you know it's just an area that nobody can see. Nobody can see, and that's why people throw garbage out, and the things they throw over those banks are incredible. When there's accidents, all the parts get pushed over the bank down into the creek. No, nobody comes and cleans it up. They just get pushed over the bank into the creek. There's still lots of pipes and things I'm kind of working on, but it is not an area for the faint of heart. But somebody should be patrolling it. I'd recommend somebody take a look at that down in there, because it is getting, in just 5 years, especially since last year, what's happened to that side of that bank and that road is incredible. And what the railroad, what they're throwing over the bank from the top side is really not good, not good stewardship. So I'm going to keep doing what I do. I just wanted you folks to know what was going on there.
Can you leave your name and number with Kathy?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
And I'll be in touch with you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you. John Foley?
Gentlemen, first let me thank you for your service, for what you've done and what you will do. I will tell you, the job that you have, I would never want. It would bore me to tears.
Oh, it's not boring, Mr. Foley.
But with that said, I've had an opportunity to look at some records, but not all. I've looked at the asset purchase agreement. I've looked at the information provided, financial information provided by the authority to City Council. And my observations are based on that. I have not had an opportunity as of yet to interview people at the Sewer Authority, but I'm looking to. Well, let's talk about some of the interesting things. The financial information that was given to you is incomplete. Incomplete in that, and I can't tell you whether it was out of design, but I know that it would have been helpful to have the financial information for the months of April, May, and June 2015. I was able to work around it, but it would be helpful to have that, and frankly, I've requested it from the authority. I look at the information in total through December 31st, and I say to myself, the information has to be incomplete. And I say that because I looked at the payroll for the month of December 2016 for the Sewer Authority, and it was $356,000. There is an accrual on the books for $149,000, which I take as part of that 356. But the thing that caught my attention, that in December 2016, the authority opened a post-closing payroll account. And at year end, there's $1.1 million in it. It wasn't there in November 16 or any time prior. This was opened in December. So it would seem that accruals, and maybe it's bonuses paid to individuals after year end, but frankly, they should have accrued it. And that leads me to believe that you did not get complete information. I will be sending a right to know request into the authority, and I'll deal with right to know requests later. But it leads me to believe you guys didn't get the whole story. You need to get it. Now, some of the other pieces of information I did have an opportunity to take a look at, they provided some fixed asset information. And the thing that caught my attention was not the balances at year end. That's typically what the bean counter accountants look for. But the forensic guys look to what happened on a month-to-month basis. And then what I looked at, I saw that between the closing date, or the date that it was determined on the purchase price, to the closing date, the authority spent $15 million. It appears that the documents, the documents did not address what would happen for significant increases. I would dare say that the purchases of property, plant, and equipment for the 2 years ended 15 and 16, are nowhere near what you paid, and 16 being through March 31st, 16, that there was an acceleration. And the things that really bothered me, I looked at the vehicles. The vehicles went with the deal. I looked at, I think it's section 2.02, small 1, that indicated that there was going to be a retention of vehicles. That was in the asset purchase agreement dated March 28, 29, 2016. But in September 16, they bought vehicles for $63,000. So that means a couple months before. The sewer plant and everything that goes with it was turned over to American Water. Somebody spent $63,000 on vehicles. Maybe it's right. I can't tell you. But I can tell you one thing, that in December 2016, they spent $230-some thousand on vehicles. The same month that the sewer plant was being sold. I will come back, because some of these things I believe have significance. I'll deal with the last thing. Thank you very much for considering that you will use, you asked the Auditor General to jump in. I know those guys. I respect their work. I'm glad to see cooperation with Dunmore. They jumped in. I think you probably should have asked for the Attorney General's office to jump into this thing, or my all-time favorite, the Department of Justice. But we can deal with some of those matters at future meetings. Oh, one last thing. I finally found a lawyer, a city lawyer, that I think is doing an outstanding job, Joe Price. Congratulations for the hire.
Thank you. Thank you. Bill Jackowitz?
Good evening, Scranton City Council, Kathy, Council Stenographer, Lori, and Hamel. Good evening. Well, I see another group jumped into the fray, the Sewer Authority fray. I see the Office of Open Records is now involved in this. But then again, right off the bat, they screwed up by allowing the Sewer Authority an extended extension. I mean, they should have demanded answers immediately and get them while they're still hot on the press, because this is still brand new to all of us. So I hope them better luck than City Council and everybody else has had with the administration and with the Sewer Authority. I hope they get some answers and some proper answers. It sounds like Mr. Foley here is doing a lot of work that should have been done by City Council prior to their 4-to-1 vote in approving the sale of the Scranton Sewer Authority. It seems to me like a lot of this stuff was being put into place well in advance of the actual sale. And if a good investigation had been done prior to this, maybe the vote would have been different from 4-to-1, maybe it would have been 1-to-4. And the Sewer Authority sale would have been delayed for a period of time. But again, it's Scranton. What more can I say? The city is in dire needs and dire straits. It's been in dire needs and dire straits for quite some time now. I'm really surprised that it has hung on for as long as it has. I hope it can hang on for at least 5 or 10 more years. But I don't know, I kind of have my doubts with the school board having their problems, and the city having their problems, and the authorities having their problems, and everybody else having their problems, I'm not sure how much longer the city can survive this. A question, the Sewer Authority Board, who appointed them?
The mayor.
The mayor.
Yeah, I know the mayor, but which one?
Mayor Courtright, for the most part.
Mayor Courtright appointed the Sewer Authority Board?
For the most part.
For the most part? Okay, I was just wondering it makes sense now that his appointees naturally vote the way he wants them to vote. And,
Actually, the sale was started under the prior board. The Sewer Authority started the sale under the board that had been appointed, for the most part, by Mayor Doherty.
so the actual sale for the Sewer Authority started
With that-
2 years
It
ago?
started 2 years ago,
It
yes.
started 2 years ago?
Yes.
So you mean we've had 2 years of advance notice of this sale and everything is screwed up like it is?
They've been planning to sell it. First they planned to lease it, then they planned to sell it, so this has been going on for a while, yes.
Yeah, but I mean...
By the authority, by the
Right,
authority.
By the authority, I understand that. I understand that city council had no deal with the sale of the sewer authority except for the vote that you took to authorize the sale. That's the only...
And that vote was to allow the money to come into the
That's
city.
the only part that city council had in this. I understand that.
And that was to allow the money to come into the city. If that
Right.
vote wasn't taken, the money would be out with the sewer authority. So that is why that vote had to be taken.
But if we've been planning this sale for 2 years, how come there were so many mistakes made? I mean, $14 million, I believe it is, shortfall.
That, the sewer authority negotiated the deal.
I understand that, but I'm just saying, you know, if they were negotiating this deal for 2 years, how did they have so many mistakes? How could so many mistakes happen unless you have incompetent people running the show? Which might be the problem, you know?
Yeah, their meeting is on the 19th, if you'd like to ask them.
Well, it's a waste of time going there, you know, it really is. But again, it just amazes me how everything that Scranton seems to do, we got the problem with the parking garages. That's gonna end up biting us in the rear end by the time everything's over with. We got problems with the mall, that's gonna bite us also. And then we got the sewer authority. You know, the sewer authority deal is not gonna go away. People are not gonna forget this. Because every month when they get their water bill, they're gonna remember. They're gonna remember who voted for it and who put it into place, who negotiated. Actually, who did negotiate the sewer authority sale?
The sewer authority.
The sewer authority, but who negotiated for them? The board didn't do the negotiation.
That's all part of the legal fees. The legal team for the sewer authority negotiated the deal.
So the 50 lawyers negotiated the sale.
Parts of it, yes.
So, okay, just that answers a lot of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lee Morgan?
Good evening, Council. Lee Morgan. I'd just like to take the people back here a little while, and I want everybody to remember how entertaining these council meetings were at one time with Ray Lyman and YouTube and everything, and everybody was just under the opinion that these council meetings were all just fun and games and nothing mattered. And there were people who came here, you know, some of them are deceased now. They brought very, very important questions forward. They didn't receive any answers then, and people aren't receiving any now. As a matter of fact, I remember, I believe, when Janet Evans used to say, "Kay, take a letter," and then, you know, the meatheads in the bars used to have a shot and laugh and joke and drink about it and really enjoy the hell out of themselves. And I guess they're probably thinking a little different now. And there's really nothing left of our city. It's just a complete wasteland and a slum for the most part. As a matter of fact, today I had the day off from work, and I had a gentleman who lives on East Mountain, and he told me that if somebody came up to him and offered him $40,000 for his property, he'd leave. He said he might even take $37,000 or $35,000 just to get out of here. That's a very troubling thing. And then, like Faye said, you know, people are coming here trying to influence the election. And the message I have for the people in this city, to be very honest, is the Republicans have this opportunity more than anybody else. Write somebody's name in the ballot that you, a neighbor, somebody that lives in your community, you have some kind of faith in, that can't be bought and sold like a commodity, that won't sell you out. And write their name in, no matter who they are, and hope they get the 100 votes and they can survive and run in the general election. Or somebody's going to have to do a write-in. Because the things that have happened in our government for a quarter century, I have to ask what our state senator and what our state representatives have done to make this city government function in a way that would serve the people. Because we've had council members, nothing personal against the council members, but they were never intelligent enough to do the jobs they had. And the council that voted the sale of the sewer authority's assets is beyond ridiculous because they couldn't even understand what they were reading. And it's not a personal shot at you. And you know, the people who on the sewer authority board that were political and voted the way they were told, I don't think the Scranton residents understand exactly what's going to happen in the next couple of years because none of the pension problems have been addressed. Neither of any of the problems as far as revenue in the city is concerned have been addressed. The wastewater management plan hasn't been addressed. I asked this council last week if they were willing to petition the PUC to come in and readjust Pennsylvania American Water's rates because they gave away the stormwater collection system money with the sale of the authority. Not one person was willing really to jump in there and write a letter. So my point is, who do you really represent? Because you're not doing anything for the residents of this city. And you know, when you look at the Novembrino pool project that's going to take place, I don't know, does the city really need a splash park? Or do we really need somebody to come onto this council and somebody in the mayor's office to slash the city's budget by at least 30%? To begin funding the pensions. And I mean, my vehicles have been just totally beaten into submission by the potholes and the lack of basic repair work to the city's infrastructure. And how can this council or this administration justify that? And all the other things, like people are talking about the tree house now and tons of other things. Well, you were all celebrating when Mayor Doherty was mayor and he was spending money like it didn't matter and everything we did then was wrong. And to be honest with you, nothing personal against Mr. Courtwright or this council, but everything that you gentlemen have done is wrong. Selling the garages off, doing the deal with the sewer authority, it's all wrong. And all the neighborhoods are in complete decline and people are trying to get out of here. And you know that as well as anybody else. And really what was necessary is to step forward and be a leader and cut the budget. Why? Because the people are out of money and you should be serving them. But that's not what's happening here. And that's not what's happening across this country. And we can only fool ourselves for so long. But you know what? Whether I support or don't support Mr. Barletta, he said it right last week when he said, reform of the health care system is necessary because the federal government's having a hard time meeting its obligation of payments. Although you shouldn't do it on the backs of health care and on the people in this country, but then the people in this country have been sleepwalking for 50 years and they're putting themselves to sleep. Thank you. Write somebody in for city council and do yourself a favor, somebody who represents you.
Anyone else?
Chris.
Good evening, Marie Schumacher. I'd like to note that I believe Monday was the first anniversary of the letter I wrote to Mayor Courtwright asking questions on the sewer authority that's been followed up both by phone and in person many times, and I still do not have a response. That is the same mayor who promised when he was debating Jim Mulligan that he would be very transparent and everybody could just no problem coming to see him. All you had to do was walk on in the door. Not true. So that leads into the fact that next Tuesday is the election. This is the last council meeting. I hope that people have been watching. I hope they've been reading the paper. I hope they've been listening. And most of all, I hope they leave their homes and vote. Leaving the results of the election to a few is not really a very good idea. And I do hope everyone will get out and vote who is eligible. Now, the first item on my, I did not get to look at the agenda this week prior to, but there's only one, but it ties in with my first question, which was, did the city use Scranton Sewer Authority proceeds to fund the city's share of funding for the National Resource Network?
Not that I'm aware of.
Where did the $500,000 come from then?
Well, that was, no, this is just for the study. We're talking about phase 2 here. It's going to cost us $12,500. That $500,000, I think, is a promissory, that is built into the sewer authority proceeds. But
Well, if we do this, are we not obligated to continue with the next phase? I mean, why spend $12,000 if you're not going to go for the $500,000?
Well, that is built into the sewer authority proceeds. You're correct. But it has not been spent yet.
So I hope you don't spend any. What about the firehouse next door? That was, I believe it was Mr. Bolzoni said he thought the sewer authority proceeds were a good place to fund that. Is that what has paid for the?
I think we're still waiting for the third-party administrator. That's all ties together before the money starts entering the system.
No. The work has been done.
Oh, the work is being done now.
That's the emergency work.
Where's it
But the capital improvement program, I believe the sewer proceeds sales, they're waiting for everything to get all settled with the pensions.
But that's where it's coming from, and you're all in agreement, so you're allowing money to be spent before the trust agreement is before you.
No money has been spent from that I'm
Well,
aware of.
you've done the work. Would you
work
rather be sued?
Well, the work has to be done.
It's been done.
It's emergency repair over there.
But it's still where it's going to get paid from. And so I don't think you should, I think this should be tabled until you get that trust agreement. And this gets back to what Mr. Bolas said, something I do agree with him on, is that's where you have your power. If you don't vote on all these things and bring them forward until you get the information you want and we want, then this place would come to a standstill, or maybe people would get rational and they'd actually give us some information. I mean, I'm expecting hundreds of dollars probably worth of redacted information from the sewer authority, way, 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 way overdue. And I'm sure probably most of the money from whatever I have to pay will have been used in black felt tip markers to redact it, just as it was for the Times. And you people sit there like you're not supporting us. I just don't understand why.
We request the same answers we got, you got. So I don't say how you're not supporting us. We're requesting the same information you are.
Okay, then moving on to, I guess this would be Mr. Rogan's. Back in the last administration, UNC, United Neighborhood, were given, they've always been given a lot of our federal money. And there were a complex of nice brick structures which I thought were to be sold in the 600 block of the odd side of Cedar Avenue. And strange that one of those apartments, just recently, this article in the paper, a Scranton man sold heroin to an informant while holding his baby, the police said. And guess what his address was? 611 Cedar Avenue, one of UNC's places that they're leasing, that they're renting out or leasing out because I guess they couldn't sell them. I don't know. I would like some information. This is certainly not a low, moderate income person when they can have, with the amount of drugs they found in that building. And how is UNC doing? I mean, I'm really offended. We have a lot of people who could be helped and could use that money. And if that's what UNC is doing with our federal dollars, then, and I'll be back next week, good Lord willing, with the rest. Thank you.
And on that with UNC, I do think that's something we should look into because they do receive a very large portion of our block grant money. There are a number of programs there that I think have done a good job, but this is one, I believe some of those properties are actually still listed for sale. So thank you.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Christopher Kays, President of the South Scranton Neighborhood Association. What I'm here for tonight is Pennswood Manor, 929 Cedar Avenue. I know this has been an ongoing issue for 4 to 5 years now. 2 previous presidents have brought this to your attention. The problem is we keep getting told that, okay, their final date, say this last one was the end of April. Well, Mr. Weschel is kind enough to inform me this week that they got yet another extension until June. How do they keep getting these extensions? I can't get answers from anybody.
No, we haven't, we investigated it, and it seems odd that a lower court could reverse the state Supreme Court.
That was one of my other questions.
And I'm not, we talked about it in caucus this evening, and our attorney, we don't understand it either.
Okay, I mean, I'm getting personal complaints directly to me from parents of the students of South Intermediate, which is only a half a block away from a drug rehab, which there is a resident there who is on the Megan's list. I don't know if you gentlemen are aware of that, but it's a public, you can see it. He's residing a half a block away from a school. I did talk to Chief Graziano, and there are no laws or anything in place, which seems ridiculous to me. And another thing, I don't think it's ever in the past 4 or 5 years been zoned properly or licensed properly.
No, you're correct. I think they lost their zoning appeal for the rehab center, and they've been operating illegally ever since.
Then why does the city not close them down?
That's what the state Supreme Court said, and then they were overruled by lower court, which again, we don't understand. But there is basically the D-Day right now is June 1st. That's the date.
That's the date Mr. Weschler provided with me.
And that's the date we're all looking for at this point.
Yeah, and we've asked Mr. Hinton to begin planning for June the 1st. We're not sure exactly what his authority is. To be honest with you, I'm not sure if he has the authority to remove them, or if that's a sheriff or police.
That's what I was told last time, that if they weren't out at the end of April, that they're physically going to go in there and remove them.
Who should remove them? I'm only asking.
I was told the inspectors would do that.
Okay.
But the end of April's passed, and now they got another extension. This has to be the 5th or 6th extension.
Yeah, I'm not sure. The inspectors are not law enforcement officers, so I don't know. That's what we're trying to determine.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to Director Hinton as well, and I got the same story. You know, we're all getting on the same page. And my suggestion was that if they, first we're all in agreement that I don't understand how a lower court could grant an extension to a Supreme Court's a ruling. But with that said, it was done. And it's my opinion that if it was granted once, what's not to say they're already not putting together something for a second extension, which would further bring this up.
Oh, it would be more than the second.
It's almost like an ongoing, issue. That's just, where's the end? You know, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court said, you're not supposed to be there, get out. But yet they're there, and they're getting allowed to stay, 60 days at a time. So I made a suggestion that maybe we should start getting our team together and fight and get ready for this next battle if it does happen, because we cannot allow another extension.
Let's be proactive.
You're right. June 1st, is it? June 2nd is over, but then to Mr. Wexler's point is, now what's the avenue? What's the vehicle? How do we enforce the Supreme Court's ruling once we make sure that they don't get another extension?
Okay.
And that's kind of where we are right now.
Chris, we discussed this at length in the back room prior to you coming, and I'm very familiar with this, not only from talking to you, but from being at this facility 5 years ago when this battle first started. The frustrating part for us, and for you and the neighbors as well, is that the highest court in the state has said that this drug rehab facility cannot operate at Pennswood Manor, and it's continuing to operate. So under motions tonight, I am going to, and I won't elaborate now, but I mentioned this in the back as well. I'm going to ask that we send a letter to Director Hinton asking that he gets all his ducks in a row, kind of what Mr. Perry just mentioned, that when this expires, whether it's putting physical locks on the property or whatever has to be done, this game cannot continue of them going to the courts every few months for a continuation.
For 4 or 5 years now.
Right.
4 or 5 years.
And I understand when it was in legal appeals, going through the appeals process, I wasn't happy about it, but I understood that a final determination hasn't been made, that it was in the appeals process. But at this point, once the state Supreme Court rules, that's the ruling. And they have to abide by it, and this drug rehab has to be shut down.
We have to be concerned about the children. There's children that pass by there to and from school. These are middle school, 11, 12-year-old children. And these gentlemen are approaching these children, asking for cigarettes, asking for lights for their cigarettes. No grown adult that doesn't know that child should be approaching the child, especially if it's one of the Megan Laws guys. It's ridiculous. And do we know what the director's qualifications are? Is he even qualified to run what's his education? Is he even qualified to run a facility?
I think you're accusing Mr. Hinton when it's the courts that...
No, I'm not accusing Mr. Hinton. I'm curious, as the gentleman running this Pennswood.
Oh, that I don't know.
Does anybody know his qualifications, his level of education, his experience?
I mean, they're certified by the state, I would imagine, but we don't have any control over that.
Before the bell goes off, if I could get it, I see her reaching for it. I know bars have nuisance laws. If I've heard of bars being shut down because they have been nuisances. Is it the same for residence rental properties?
There is a law with so many calls by police, it becomes a nuisance property.
Do you know what that time frame is?
3, it's not calls, it's filed reports, and that's part of the issue, that sometimes a call will be made, the police will say, calm it down, or they'll take care of the situation. Right. But if that report isn't actually filed, then that doesn't count towards that. I believe it's 3 and 6 months, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay, 1022 Cedar Avenue, there's been 3 visits this month alone. And it's been like that in previous months, and I'm sorry, I went past the bell.
Attorney Minor, did you have a comment? Did you have a comment?
Not so much a comment, but the court ordered an extension. That's what it came from, but it came as a result of the city seeking sanctions against Pennswood Manor. And Pennswood Manor filed a motion for an extension and to stay the sanctions. So the court granted that until June 1st. So it's not as though the city was doing nothing. The city actually precipitated this order by asking the court to sanction them for not following a previous court order. So I can't explain to you why the court acted the way they did. I don't have the pleadings in front of me. Right. I can make some guesses, but you don't want that.
Okay, well, I'll be interested in seeing Mr. Hinton's reply to the letter.
Yeah, but we have it on Mr. Hinton's radar now, and it's on our radar now.
Oh, I've made him aware of it too.
Yeah. So we are...
We could ask that any correspondence back to us that you're copied on it as well. The neighborhood watch.
I appreciate it. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening. Marianne Rader, I'm a Scranton resident. I'm here to discuss, it's going to seem tedious in light of everything we've been talking about tonight, but the flooding and storm drain issue out where I live. I live on North Washington Avenue near the corner of Greenridge Street. In 2001, my husband and I remodeled our basement, put a French drain in, I think that's what it's called, and a sump pump, never had a problem. Until late last year, and then this March, the basement's no longer used, it's useless. Had to tear everything out. Our yard becomes a pool of water. I've never seen anything like it. My concern is, I do have some pictures here. I took pictures of all the storm drains along North Washington in that corner. Can I bring them up to you?
Sure.
Okay. These drains, as you can see, are completely obstructed. Every one of them. There's so much debris and then they're useless. There used to be a truck I think it was referred to as the Claw, that the city owned, that is no longer functioning, of course, along with the leaf extractor truck that no longer functions. Why? I don't know. They used to come out periodically, open up these storm drains, and dig out all the debris. So, these trucks don't function. People sweep their leaves to the curb, there's no more truck to extract those leaves. Those leaves get swept down the streets and, and obstruct these storm drains. So, my question is, I think North Washington Avenue is an emergency route because of Marywood University, Holy Family Residence, St. Joseph Center. I'm not sure who's responsible for these storm drains. I think Greenwich Street is a state route, if I'm not mistaken. My question is, do I have to go out with my yellow gloves and clean out these storm drains? It's just, they're useless. They're of no use. There's branches in those drains. My yard is just, it's out of control. There's also, I have no curbs left. There are no curbs. Now, am I responsible to put my own curbs in? I don't know if that's a responsibility I pay an extraordinary amount of money in taxes, $10,000 a year in taxes.
I don't mean to interrupt, but
Yes.
if you could just a little bit back from the microphone. It's
Okay.
it's just kind of muffled up.
All
We
right.
want to make sure everybody can hear.
We pay in approximately $1,700 a year in county taxes and $8,300 in city and school taxes a year. And this is what we get. What do we get for it? Not much. No services at all. So I don't know if there's grant money available for situations like this, for curbs, I'm sure not to clean out drains, but I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but something has to be done because it's destroying our properties.
Well,
I don't know.
Mrs. Rader, I'll make Director Gallagher aware of it, and we'll make sure that it gets done.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Okay.
If it's strictly a stormwater sewer,
this is
the city is responsible for that. The city now is 100% responsible for that. It's always been responsible, but now it's specifically responsible. And they did get equipment from the sewer authority to clean up problems just like this.
I saw
they got a
one
vacuum.
last week, but apparently it's the Pennsylvania water truck or something that was
but
cleaning out drains, but
The
I
city
don't know.
the city did receive equipment to start doing this.
Okay,
type of work.
all right, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, we were gonna keep that. They're beautiful. You're right.
Good evening, Council. Dave Dobson, resident. Taxes paid, fees paid. Once again, if you drove up Cedar Avenue on the way to town here, you would see that it was being destroyed even gooder than ever. They were right there, UGI, digging away. Looked like a really crummy repair. Patch job, there were tire tracks in it, and the guys were getting ready to go to the bar or home, whatever. I'd also like to mention our parking authority once again. I hope that their plan of fixing the elevators doesn't continge on a grandiose plan of tearing the two top floors of the parking garage across the street down, and maybe by the time I might still be young enough to drive by the time they get it finished. So that elevator situation should be fixed ASAP. If they're so great to begin with and they're helping us out so much, well, time to kick in and start. This is a regional problem, and it also pertains to Scranton. Channel 16 and related networks are being bought out by Fox Network. Now, personally, and this is only a personal opinion, but I think that Rupert Murdoch should be deported as an unlawful alien. But that's besides the point. But there's too many stations falling under their control. All of your Discovery channels fell under their control, and they currently stink. Flying saucers, all kinds of crazy stuff, mountain monsters, the Sasquatch. Give me a break. That's not information. I want information. And they are not the people that provide it, because they're nothing but a bunch of lying, self-grandizing, whatever, along with their anchors that just resigned for their corporate rape attempts. Once again, Wayne, don't forget, Dinks. I want to see that sign up, Dinks welcome. Dual income, no kids. Our school system's in enough trouble. We don't need everybody
we love Dinks.
Moving in with 7 kids.
Absolutely.
You know, so don't forget us Dinks. My wife and I are memberships of the Honorable Dink Club. And a week or two ago, somebody was in here ranting about how a certain landfill could refuse to take our trash. And I would appreciate if you people would disregard it, pretend it goes in here, and out there. Sorry, Mark. Because that's not economic justice. Economic justice isn't paying New York City prices for a ton of coal when it's being taken out from 10 feet from under your basement. I mean, you know, if he wants to refuse to accept Scranton trash, then he could take his trash pile and move out of town, go somewhere else, move it to China for all I care. And a lot has been said about the sewer authority, and I don't want to keep kicking it, but future limits on salaries. We can't have somebody piling 1 hour after another on it after they're already making a considerable 6-figure salary, and then all of a sudden, oh, well, I put buku hours into this, and I deserve another 6-figure salary. I have a little question on politics. What does marriage and politics have in common? Are the promises you're getting worth the promises you got? And I said that nicely. Are the promises you're getting worth the promises you got? So I often wonder, a lot of people think that maybe somebody else could do a better job, but then and again I have to look at the situation and see what we get, you know. Thank you and have a good night. And one quick thing, if you're tired of voting for the typical candidates, keep in mind, I'm always available for dictator. Enough of this democracy, comrades. Have a good night.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Tom, you have to follow Dave now.
Yeah, tough act to follow, Tom.
It is a tough act to follow. My name's Tom Welby, and just to be clear, before you upset Mr. Murdoch and have him send any zombies in after us, I spent a little over 25 years working at between WLF-TV and WNEP-TV, and Fox Network doesn't have anything to do with this. These are WNEP is owned, as are a number of small local stations around the country, owned by Tribune Broadcasting. They're local stations, nothing to do with the networks. They just happen to air different network programming. The same thing, WOLF being owned by Sinclair Broadcasting. Sinclair is buying Tribune, and hopefully we won't upset Mr. Murdoch and have a Discovery feature here. I'm here actually more on behalf of State Representative Marty Flynn, for whom I work. And just a couple of things that I wanted to bring up with you. One is we had originally scheduled a shredding event for this coming Saturday over at the Scranton High School Memorial Stadium parking lot, and because of the threat of heavy rain, we had to cancel it. But I do want to, if we can, for anybody that's interested, Geisinger, Mount Pleasant is having a free shredding event, and they okayed my promoting this, a free shredding event tomorrow morning at their property over on Mount Pleasant Avenue. That's just off Linden Street, up above Redner's, and it's from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m., a free paper shredding event that is available for this weekend, and Representative Flynn will be rescheduling his own, but if somebody has paper ready, the shredding event is available to them. Another thing regarding recycling, the last couple of weeks we've been out, as I know some of you have been out as well, on cleanups of our neighborhoods and trails and river walks. And we have been seeing a lot more of electronics, televisions and computer monitors in particular. We're finding them in the alleys, we're finding them on the trails, and we're finding them right along the roadsides. Representative Flynn has introduced legislation that will provide for funding to once again supplement for the recycling of these electronics materials. And in the meantime, it's difficult for someone to recycle them. The recycling center, which is no longer owned by the county, charges $2 a pound. As you know, a lot of the old TVs weigh 100 pounds and more. And to expect someone to pay $200 to recycle an old TV, I don't think is going to be met with a lot of success. And we did some investigations of other communities in Pennsylvania, and in all of the instances that we found, the recycling centers are owned by the municipality or by the county. But in those situations, they're recycling for 30 cents a pound for non-residents and 20 cents a pound for residents, making it a little more reasonable. But I know that some of you were working on trying to find a way to allow for a dumpster to be opened at the DPW yards and made available during regular business hours for people to drop their televisions or computer electronics recycling off there. And I was hoping that perhaps you might have an update on that for us, and our office also is continuing to look for grant money to provide for that. And also regarding cleanups, next week we'll be out doing, Representative Flynn and myself and some other volunteers will be out along with the South Scranton Neighborhood Association and North Scranton people, covering over graffiti. We're going to get the Market Street Bridge underpass, the Greenridge Street underpass, the Theodore Street underpass, and a few others, as well as some buildings that need to be covered over. We will go on to some private property within reason. And if anybody wants to help, anybody wants to volunteer, contact our office, and we'd be happy to do that. And also, if there is graffiti that you think should be covered up, let us know about that as well. The property that Chris Case from the Neighborhood Association referred to earlier today on Cedar Avenue, 929 Cedar, that was sold at the judicial sale in late March, and the person that purchased the property hasn't received the deed yet and probably won't for another month. It's Just Management Properties, LLC. And I believe the gentleman's name is John Zhang. We spoke today, or had someone speak to him today. He said he has no association with the current people that are in there, and we believe that to be true. He doesn't know what his intentions are for the property until he gets the deed and is able to get in there and look at it. There is also the possibility he might just charge them rent unless something is done to be sure that they are to be put out, if indeed that is the wish of the people. The other property that he mentioned on Cedar Avenue at 1022, I believe it is 1020 or 1022 Cedar Avenue, that he believes is a nuisance property. There were two police vehicles at that property today and officers speaking to the residents at that property today. So hopefully a report will be made on that as well. And just real quick, I noticed Mark Bigliori from ECTV stuck his head out regarding a little technical issue, and I just wanted to acknowledge ECTV for all that they do, not just for you all. I generally watch the meetings live or later rebroadcast on ECTV, and so many other things that they do, and thank you for your support of ECTV. And actually, I'm looking forward to seeing some of you on the rebroadcast of the program. You live here, you should know this, which is another great little feature that we see on ECTV, and thank you for your support of them.
Mr. Welby, actually, just before you go, the county is trying to put something together for all the municipalities for electronic recycling. We had a meeting, I believe, 3 weeks ago to discuss this problem, because it's everywhere, like you say. So they're actually trying to come up with a plan where we can coordinate between all the municipalities in the county.
And I'll follow up with Mayor Courtright as well, and I believe it was Mr. Perry that read the letter probably a few months back. I forget what the date was, but we were told that there will be dumpsters down at DPW for residents to bring electronics to recycle, because the rate that's being charged, this, like you mentioned, especially for older electronics, is astronomical. You know, $200 to recycle a TV.
Yeah.
Who's going to do that?
My old TV would cost more to get rid of than the new TV that I purchased.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Fifth order, 5A motions.
Mr. Perry?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Wexler. I have a couple things. Most of them we touched on tonight, one way or the other. But first, for our stenographer, how many times have you had to type the word zombie at an official meeting? It has to be a record, probably 4 times now. A couple of things we talked on. Something that I want to say that I'm pleased with is that the Dunmore is getting on board with us with our request for the SSA to seek an audit for the sale. That just goes to show you that there is a thirst for getting this out in the open, and the information that we have gotten up to now has been at best subpar. You know, the redacted information that we got, or blackened out information, just doesn't cut it, and it just, as Mr. Foley says, it doesn't tell us enough, doesn't give us enough pieces to the puzzle. So I applaud them, and I know this board is continuing on forward on that. Mr. Wexler also mentioned the Rockwell Bridge, which is going to have its formal opening tomorrow at 9 a.m. after it's a half decade of being closed, which is going to be a big relief for everybody in that part of the city, I'm sure. As I spoke about, I spoke with Mr. Fallon about the treehouse and just the state that it was in, and if he had any expectations on when it was going to get fixed, how much it was going to cost, and what the root problem was, and who was going to take a look at it and fix it. And he didn't have anything other than what was reported in the paper for right now. So I'll follow up with him next week. He said he should have more answers, see if we have this up and running at some point this year. Penswood Manor. Again, we talked about this a lot. We talked about this in caucus, and I know Mr. Rogan is going to make a formal motion soon herein. I just want to say that, you know, when a Supreme Court makes a decision that should hold. Now, do I have a law background? Absolutely not. But sometimes common sense can trump a law degree, and the extensions, they need to stop. That does not belong there. That treatment facility never belonged there. I don't think it's ever been legally there, and that's why the Pennsylvania Supreme Court said that they need to leave. So I know, speaking with Mr. Hinton, he is absolutely on board with doing whatever it takes to prevent any more extensions and making June 1st the absolute end day. You know, it's going to be you know, we're gonna follow up with this, and you know, it's just very disturbing to hear how long this has been going on. I went to school there for 3 years, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and you know, everything that that gentleman said was right. You know, kids walk past there constantly. I got the bus, but I got the bus on Pittston Avenue, and I walked down Maple Street right to the school. And I mean, there's just no way of avoiding it. So you know, us as a city, I know we've done numerous things to help get this finished, but we need to do more. We need to make sure this just isn't here anymore, whatever it takes. And if that means blocking another extension and then enforcing the Supreme Court's decision, then that's just what we need to do. We have to make sure we take care of this. Let's see, we talked about this. Really the only thing I have left was that it's going to be, Mr. Evans, I don't know if you were going to address the correspondence you got about the assessment, so I'll let you do that. I know, you know, we're both on board with the county doing a reassessment that is far overdue. So Mr. Evans will discuss that. And lastly, I'll leave you guys with Election Day. Please get out there and vote. It's one of the most important jobs that we have as citizens, and it's just, you know, so many people go to war, some of them don't come back, and it's for that right to vote. So please get out there on the 16th and do your duty. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Mr. Rogan?
Yes, thank you very much. First, I want to give a huge thank you to our police department, and I don't know if they want me to mention them by name by not, but specifically there were 2 officers that did an amazing job with, and again, it was a minor issue, but it was well reported. There was a vandalism spree in West Side about 3 weeks ago. It was widely reported in the paper and on WNEP. Initially, one individual was caught as, I think it was Sunday night around 8 o'clock, I received a phone call from the police department. I was one of the victims, so I filed a report online. I received a follow-up call at Sunday at 8 o'clock from our police department to let me know that they were going to apprehend a number of individuals in this case. So I have to give a huge thank you to the officers that worked the West Scranton vandalism spree case. And I have to say, I was a little startled when I got a call at 8 o'clock and they said, this is the Scranton Police Department. But when they said it was, in regards to the vandalism spree and they were making arrests, I was ecstatic, especially to have that service on a Sunday night at a late hour. So I have to give a huge thank you to those officers and our entire police department for doing such a great job. Secondly, I want to correct something I mentioned earlier. I was incorrect. I voted for the 2014 budget, but against the 2013 budget. So I did want to correct that. Onto the Penswood Manor issue. We did receive a very large packet, well, not very large, but we received a large packet of information about Penswood Manor. This issue, unfortunately, has been going on for over 5 years. Many years ago, Penswood Manor was a nursing home that housed senior citizens. My wife actually worked there in high school. She was the recreation coordinator as a part-time job. A number of years following that, the ownership decided for some reason that there wasn't enough money in having a nursing home for people who need help and decided to turn it into a drug rehab facility. This never went to Scranton. This was never approved by Scranton's zoning board, and an occupancy permit was never issued for a drug rehab to operate on that property. So this is probably going back 4 years ago at this point. I corresponded with, it was actually a previous director for licensing and inspections, and I was told at the time that this was currently under appeals. And although I was not happy with the answer, I understood the answer, that if it was tied up in the courts, the city had to wait until the courts weighed in. As Mr. Perry mentioned and as their speakers mentioned tonight, the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court ruled that Penswood Manor has no legal right to operate a drug rehab facility on Cedar Avenue in South Scranton. We have a large amount of documentation here. Following that order, the Penswood Manor Associates have multiple times petitioned the court asking for extensions, saying that they need more time to move people out, saying that their affairs aren't in order and they need extensions. And this is all documented. A number of it is in the packet that we have here. And this letter, I want to read an excerpt from it. This is from May 4th, 2016. It was sent to Jack Sweeney, the zoning officer, from the attorney for Penswood Manor. And it says, "Dear Mr. Sweeney, please accept this correspondence as follow-up to my client's letter dated April 29th, 2016. My client, Penswood Manor Estates Associates, contacted me to notify you that it expects September 30th, 2016 to be their last day of operation for Cedar Residence, Inc. at 929 Cedar Avenue address. The sentences appearing in my client's April 29th letter, namely, no additional residents will be accepted for treatment at 929 Avenue location, and my clients agreed to voluntarily remove the operations of Cedar Residence, Inc. from the 929 Cedar Avenue location within 135 days of this correspondence. Were the result of a misleading understanding on my part and not that of my client. As stated above, the operative date for the cessation of Cedar Residence operations at 929 Cedar above location is September 30th, 2016. So we're looking, that was almost over a year ago, that September 30th date. This letter was dated well over a year ago. The letter I just read was dated May 4th. And there are a number of other correspondence in here that it seems every time the date comes for this operation to be shut down, their attorney files, again with a lower court, asking them to stay even longer. And all the while, residents are being harassed, and as Mr. Perry mentioned, students walking to school are having issues. So that being said, we did discuss this in caucus, so I'd like to make a motion that we send a letter to Pat Hinton and also have the Southside Neighborhood Watch copied on all correspondence, asking that he takes any and all appropriate measures to enforce on June 2nd the Cedar LLC vacating the premises. We'll ask that he coordinates with other law enforcement agencies, and if needed, the city physically locks down this facility. This could no longer continue to go on. 5 years has been long enough. So I would like to make that motion.
Second, if you need it.
There's a motion on the floor and a second on the question.
Yes, on the question, I agree wholeheartedly with that. I would just like to also say if we can copy the law department on that, just so we can be ready for possible any legality that their attorneys are already starting to get ready for another extension.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd also like to include the school district on that, and also the Scranton Police Department, just because of the foot traffic that goes by the school. We understand that there's been some, it's disturbing of what might be going on there.
Yeah, on the question, and this is kind of an aside, but I used to work at South Intermediate, and actually, the whole area there is depressed, meaning the building across from the school, on both sides, one of them needs to be torn down. It's been condemned forever. So we also might want to look into that. I know we've sent letters before, and the sidewalks are in awful condition going up to the school. So Pennswood Manor, I agree, needs to be taken care of, but there also needs to be more of a focus at that neighborhood, being that there is a school there, and as many people had already mentioned, there's hundreds of children that walk up and down that street every day. Thank you.
On the question, this really is a cautionary tale of how a company can play the legal system for 5 years to the detriment of the neighborhood and detriment of the neighbors that are down there. So I agree with the motion. Let's hope that Mr. Hinton and the city, all city officials that are necessary to be involved are ready and waiting on June 2nd for action.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, so moved.
Thank you very much, and hopefully this nightmare for the residents in that neighborhood and Southside and the students will be coming to an end next month. And I also ask that Director Hinton keeps us abreast with developments as they continue with this situation here. Follow up on a couple other items that were mentioned, the Rockwell Avenue Bridge. Unfortunately, I can't attend the ribbon cutting tomorrow because of work obligations, but it's a long overdue project. The residents of North Scranton have waited long enough. I'm thrilled that it's going to be back open. Not being from North Scranton, that's one of the few ways I know to get to that section, so I could go back to my old route, not having to take the long detour now. I will follow up with the mayor to see what the status of the dumpster being placed at DPW is for electronics recycling. I know it's something that was mentioned, I'm thinking about 3 or 4 months ago at council meetings, and it was supposed to be a spring/summertime project. But I see it everywhere in the city, and most of it is that people don't know that the garbage men can't take TVs, because there was a time when they could. Now, when it's smaller TVs, it's not as big of an issue, but when you get those big consoles, it's certainly a big problem. And finally, I would just like to ask everyone to go out to the polls and vote on next Tuesday. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rogan. Mr. Evans?
Thank you. First of all, as has been echoed tonight, please vote next Tuesday. It's very, very important that you use your vote as your voice. I did receive a letter from County Commissioner Patrick O'Malley responding to my request for information that was collected during the last abandoned reassessment in 2009. It's very similar to what was reported in the paper. There are 20 boxes with 102,000 files. There is no electronic format, which I'm having a little bit of a problem with. I did contact John Foley, who is a deputy director for the assessment office, who is a keeper of the files, and I advised him that I will be stopping by over the next few weeks to take a look at what's in the boxes, see if there's any information that we can gather that might be worthwhile for the city as it moves forward, not only with the rental registration, but other initiatives, because it is good information. So I'll let you know how that goes. Maria had asked me about the RFP. I got an answer late today. I didn't get a chance to review it, so I'll send that over via email tomorrow to you. And finally, there was a recent Scranton Times editorial, in fact, it was yesterday, and it was entitled "The Board Conflict Illuminated." The editorial reads in part, Dunmore Council created a conflict of interest when it appointed one of its own members to the SSA board, especially at a time when the authority was in the process of selling the sewer system. It went on to say, and this part is very interesting, authorities exist to conduct specialized aspects of public business outside the direct political control of the municipal government. They are, by law, independent entities that are supposed to act in the interest of the constituency that the authority serves, in this case, the sewer system ratepayers. Authority members are appointed to separate them from campaign donations and other forms of influence seeking. I happen to agree with that opinion piece. This city council has been saying this in several ways for the past months, probably since December 29th when the deal closed, that we had no input in the sale, that we were not privy to the particulars of the sale, that we were not at the table for negotiations of the sale, and we certainly had no influence on the sale. Why? Possibly because it could have been illegal, or at the very least, improper for us to be involved in the sale. Yet for some reason, there are those that want to rewrite history and question why we didn't do this and why we didn't do that prior to the closing of the transaction. I repeat, the editorial says, authorities exist to conduct specialized aspects of public business outside the direct political control of the municipal government. They are, by law, independent entities. We passed legislation on December 15, 2016 to begin to dissolve and terminate the SSA. This, in the simplest terms, allowed for the funds that would be received from the sale between the SSA and PAWC to be transferred to the city of Scranton. A no vote by this body would have created a situation where the funds would have remained with the SSA after the sale. This is a scenario that even the staunchest of critics should have found unacceptable. With that said, and I will be honest, I supported the concept of this deal. It was part of the recovery plan that I voted for, and it was the right thing to do for the financial well-being of the city. There was no other realistic alternatives to be offered. What I didn't support and continue not to support was the lack of transparency leading up to the closing and post-closing. The lack of information, the redacted invoices, and the lack of supporting documentation as to how nearly $12 million was spent during the contract period. Most, if not all of the $12 million are funds that we expected. Money to pay down more debt, money for additional capital improvements, money to help shore up pensions. Now, seemingly lost with no solid backup or explanation as to why. This post-closing period has been an insult to this council and to the taxpayers. Quite frankly, the mayor should have been as outraged as all of us over how this was handled, as the public, city council, and the media continue to search out answers. He should have been equally as outraged over the extraordinary cost for legal and professional fees. Yet there is silence. After months of stalling and receipts of worthless, redacted invoices, we had no alternative to contact the Auditor General for help. The Auditor General instructed us that it was indeed the SSA that would have to make that request. With the much appreciated support of the Dunmore Council, we are now waiting on our joint request to the SSA board on if they will act and invite the Auditor General to step in and audit the sale. Then, and only then, can we begin to finally put this behind us so we can continue at the real important task, which is finding a way to exit after a 25-year travesty of being a distressed city. So that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Mr. Gahan?
Yes, thank you. Just a few items. First of all, I'd like a letter to be sent on behalf of council regarding Mrs. Rader's issue over on North Washington Avenue and Greenridge Street. Also, Mrs. Robinson, who was here earlier tonight about the issues with snakes in her yard, I've been trying to help her out now for months, so I'd like an additional letter to be sent to the Licensing and Inspections Department. I'd like to thank the DPW. I've been complaining as of residents for quite some time about a dangerous tree on St. Anne Street, and that tree is in the process of being taken down, so I'm very glad to hear that news. I'm also receiving several complaints about the spray paint on the walkways up in Naog Park. So I am going to have or plan on having a conversation with the DPW about that and either prohibiting it or regulating it because it does look very bad. We got several requests in. One on for Morgan Court and Cherry Street needs patching. On the corner of Crisp and Jackson Street, there's a large pothole that needs to be filled. Speeding at Park Gardens on Morell Street, so we'll send that to the police department. I have been trying to get a meeting with Mayor Courtwright regarding the museum downstairs and a few other things, but I haven't been successful. So send another letter, make another phone call. I'm not sure what else to do. Maybe I have to pitch a tent downstairs and wait for him to go in or out in the morning. I'm not really sure. But I continue to be concerned about those issues, so I would like a meeting with him. So if we could send another letter and ask for a response by next week, I would appreciate that. The Rockwell Avenue Bridge opening tomorrow. Very glad to finally see that. The neighbors back there are thrilled. It's been a long time coming. When the bridge does open, I would like to send a letter to the DPW director to replace the stop sign at Gilbert Street and Rockwell Avenue. It's falling over, and now that the bridge is going to be opening up, unfortunately, one of the issues is that's going to be a very dangerous intersection again. I've seen quite a few near misses there, so if we could try to get that done. Also, I'm very concerned about the news that the treehouse is closed. I do have several questions and concerns. One thing I would like to find out is if there had been routine post-winter checks in the past on that treehouse, and if so, were there reports issued and were there any findings? It seems hard to believe that if there was a post-winter check last year, that within a year, those trees could have deteriorated to the point where the treehouse would have to be closed. So I would like further information on that. On the sewer authority, just a couple things. I'll disagree with Mr. Evans in one respect. If you remember back to December of 2016, I actually think that council had leverage to get those answers. I made a motion when the legislation was on our agenda to dissolve the sewer authority, and I voted against it because we didn't have those answers yet. But if we had voted to table it, nobody would have got any money. And I think then we could have held their feet to the fire and brought them in here and asked them those important questions. And I am very glad that the Auditor General is interested in reviewing and auditing the sale of the Scranton Sewer Authority. The lack of transparency has been, quite frankly, astonishing to me and deeply concerning over the past few months. And where there's smoke, there's usually always fire. I believe that it's in the best interest of the residents, the ratepayers, and the city as a whole that this transaction be reviewed by an independent agency, that being the Pennsylvania State Auditor General. As I mentioned last week, this is about transparency, accountability, and integrity. I would also urge every ratepayer, every taxpayer in this city to attend the next Scranton Sewer Authority meeting on Friday, May 19th at 4 p.m. right here in council chambers and demand that they invite the Auditor General in to review this transaction. I would also ask my colleagues if they would agree to send a letter to Mayor Courtwright asking him to call on the Scranton Sewer Authority to express his desire for a complete review and audit by the Auditor General. Let's not forget, as was pointed out, that the mayor appointed the majority of the members of the Sewer Authority Board, and I'd like to know what his position is on this very important issue. To close, I would like to wish every mother in the city of Scranton a happy Mother's Day this Sunday, especially my mother, Marie, my wife, Kelly, who is quite frankly a saint in my opinion, And my sister, who is going to be having a baby, God willing, any day now. So she's a mother-to-be. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guyan. In regards to the vote on terminating of the sewer authority, if we did not take that vote, we would not have the opportunity to bring the money into the city and take advantage of what we have taken advantage of with already paying down some long-term debt. And we made good use of that money already. And holding this up to get this, we would have gotten the same answers that we got now, I don't think would have been wise at that point. We are going to have the Auditor General hopefully come in. I don't believe there's any reason why he won't come in, as he responded quite quickly to our request last week. By Friday morning, he had already expressed an interest in taking up the case. And I do believe the reason why he mentioned is there are going to be many of these transactions throughout the state, and I believe that unfortunately Scranton is going to be used as a case study on how sometimes it should not have been done. We're going to have to get in front of this. There is legislation in the state to require some more transparency by state law. So some of the other sales as they take place in the future may avoid some of these same problems that we're experiencing. I did reach out to Dunmore Council on Sunday last week to get this process going. Scranton City Council really has been struggling with this issue on our own for quite a few months. And I'm very happy that Dunmore Council came in, and I'm very happy that the vote was 6-0. It does show that there is a need, and recognized by all people involved. It's very rare that all votes like that are unanimous. I do thank them for that, and I look to work with them in the future on different issues, including where possible on stormwater management, and also cooperating with battling the expansion of the Keystone landfill. I do look forward to working with Dunmore on that. Last week we talked a little bit about the problem with Mr. Young's property. This week I did speak to Solicitor Broyles and also to Business Administrator Balzoni to concur with them that DEP really is giving us a favorable stance now in us doing some repair work out at the Young and Kennedy properties. Ms. Broyles is going to have a meeting with DEP with Larry West from Senator Blake's office just to get the particulars down, and we're anticipating that we should have some type of emergency legislation before us within the next 2 weeks to get preliminary planning done to fix Mr. Young's problem out there. It will take some time still to complete that, where hopefully we can get this all through and be done within the next few weeks. The city still is concerned. We want to make sure that any repairs that we do there are acceptable and fit into the future repairs that are going to be done by the state out there. So we're just trying to get everything in here. We don't want to put good money after bad. But I am very confident right now that this problem is finally going to be coming to an end. We did have a call this week with some concerns about the excess water at Novembrino Swim Complex. Right now the city is working on getting the good pools open. Director Gallagher is monitoring the situation up there, and that will be, the water will be removed at an opportune time. We talk about Scranton being the hub of the county, and we saw that the other day. The Scranton Bomb Squad was involved with the problem out by the Armory. Our force is the bomb squad for the entire Northeast. That could have been a very serious situation. It was handled with professionalism. Fortunately, there was only a minor injury to someone out there, but it could have been a catastrophic event, and I would like to thank our bomb squad for being involved with that. Rockwell Avenue Bridge, we kind of beat a dead horse. We're all happy that it's fixed, but I would also like to offer my congratulations to Representative Flynn's office and also to Senator Blake and also to PennDOT. That actually was supposed to have been a city project. PennDOT picked up the ball on that. They ran into the problem with the contaminated soil, and they fixed that also. So I would like to thank them for sticking with that project and getting it done. And I heard Mrs. Reed is going to be on the fire truck on Friday. Oh, very nice, very nice. And that's all I have right now.
5B for introduction, a resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into Phase 2 Memorandum of Understanding between the City of Scranton and the National Resource Network to provide support for the creation and organization of a task force to assist Scranton Tomorrow and provide additional assistance.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so moved.
Sixth order, 6A, no business at this time. Seventh order, 7A, for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for adoption. File of the Council number 99, 2017, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to disperse $89,000 from the account into which repayment of urban development action grants are deposited to be used for the purchase of paving materials for the City of Scranton's paving program.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As chair for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend final passage of item 7A.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7A legally and lawfully adopted.
7B, for consideration by the Committee on Finance for adoption, resolution number 148, 2017, approving in accordance with section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended, a plan of financing of the Scranton-Lackawanna Health and Welfare Authority, and declaring that it is desirable for the health, safety, and welfare of the people of the City of Scranton for the Scranton-Lackawanna Health and Welfare Authority to undertake a project for allied health care services.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Finance?
As chairperson for the Committee on Finance, I recommend final passage of item 7B.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7B legally and lawfully adopted.
7C, for consideration by the Committee on Rules for adoption, resolution number 149, 2017, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, Division of Weights and Measures, to delegate specific weights and measures inspection and enforcement responsibilities to the City of Scranton.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7C.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7C legally and lawfully adopted. If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Meeting is adjourned.